The plasma blast caught Ambassador Sarah Chen square in the chest, her body crumpling to the polished obsidian floor of the Valerian negotiation chamber. The smell of burned flesh and ozone filled the air as her security detail moved too late, their weapons still holstered in respect for diplomatic protocol. General Vextar of the Valerian Empire lowered his ceremonial sidearm, purple blood coursing to the veins beneath his translucent skin. His 4 eyes regarded the human delegation with what his species considered amusement, a slight vibration of his gill slits. So much for human diplomacy, he said in accented standard galactic. Your ambassador asked too many questions about our mining operations in the Kepler sectors. Questions that suggested your species might be more observant than we initially calculated. Captain Martinez, Sarah's military escort, knelt beside her still form. Her breathing had stopped. Her brown eyes stared sightlessly at the vaulted ceiling where holographic star maps showed the current boundaries of Valerian space, boundaries that encompassed 17 systems humanity had thought were unclaimed. She's dead, Martinez whispered into his comm unit. Ambassador Chen is dead. The other members of the human delegation stood frozen. Dr. Rebecca Walsh, the xenobiologist, pressed her hand to her mouth. Trade Representative Johnson stared at Vextar with undisguised horror. This was humanity's first major diplomatic mission beyond their home system, their introduction to galactic politics. It was supposed to establish Earth as a legitimate member of the Galactic Consortium. Instead, it had become an execution. Your reaction is precisely what we expected. Vextar continued, holstering his weapon. Shock, horror, the paralysis of a species that has never truly faced adversity on an interstellar scale. You'll retreat now to your little blue world and file a complaint with a consortium that will be buried in bureaucracy for decades. The Valerian guards, 8-foot-tall reptilian beings with chitinous armor, stepped forward. Their plasma rifles hummed with barely contained energy. The message was clear. The surviving humans were free to leave, but they would leave with nothing except the memory of their failure. This is how the galaxy works, little humans, Vextar said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter. The strong take what they need. The weak file protests. Your ambassador discovered evidence of our expansion into your neighboring systems. She threatened to expose our illegal mining operations to consortium. But who will believe the word of a species that has been spacefaring for less than a century? Martinez stood slowly, his hand moving toward his sidearm. The Valerian guards tensed. I wouldn't, Vextar warned. Your single escort ship in orbit is already targeted by our defense platforms. Make this simple. Take your dead diplomat and go home. Tell your leaders that the galaxy is not the peaceful democracy your naive species believed it to be. Dr. Walsh found her voice. The Consortium Charter is a document written by a species far older and more powerful than yours. Vextar interrupted. We have been members for 3,000 years. The Zephyrian hegemony has been members for 5,000. The Crystalline Collective has held membership since before your sun began burning. What you call illegal, we call historical precedent. The truth hit the human delegation like a physical blow. The Galactic Consortium wasn't a fair democracy of equals. It was a carefully maintained hierarchy, and humanity sat at the very bottom. Sarah found the mining platforms. Martinez said quietly, the automated extraction rigs in the Proxima system, in the Wolf 359 system, in Gliese 876. All systems within 50 light years of Earth. Systems we began developing before your species learned to make fire. Vextar replied, your expansion was predicted and planned for. These negotiations were never about establishing trade routes or defensive pacts. They were about informing you of the boundaries you will not cross. The holographic display shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of local space. Red zones now surrounded Earth like a cage, marking Valerian territory. Humanity's home system was completely encircled. You're imprisoning us, Johnson breathed. We're managing you, Vextar corrected. Your species shows potential. With proper guidance over the next few centuries, you might eventually earn junior membership in the consortium. But that requires accepting your place in the established order. Martinez activated his comm unit again. Command, This is Captain Martinez. Ambassador Chen is dead. The Valerians have claimed all neighboring systems. They're boxing us in." The response crackled through the chamber speakers, filling the tense space with the voice of Admiral Hayes from the U.S. Defiance in orbit. "Copy that, Captain. Are the rest of you safe?" "For now. General Vextar seems to think we'll just go home quietly." Vextar's gill slits vibrated again. "Because you will. Because you must. Because the alternative is the extinction of your entire species. The Consortium has protocols for dealing with aggressive expansion by new members." Dr. Walsh stepped forward, her scientific mind working even through her grief. "You've done this before. To other species. The Antari were once promising. They controlled 12 systems before they learned their place. The Keth Moor had a beautiful homeworld before they refused to accept Consortium guidance. Now they serve as laborers in the Outer Rim mines. This is not cruelty. Humans. This is simply the way the galaxy maintains order." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft hum of environmental systems. Sarah Chen's body lay between the two species, like an unspoken ultimatum. Martinez made his decision. "We'll take our ambassador home." "Wise." Vextar gestured to his guards. "Escort them to their transport, and transmit the territorial boundaries to their ship's navigation system. Make sure they understand which routes are permitted for future travel." As the humans gathered around Sarah's body, preparing to carry her from the chamber that had become her tomb, none of them saw the small device hidden in her diplomatic pouch. None of them knew about the quantum encrypted message that had already been transmitted back to Earth, containing not just her final report on Valerian activities, but something far more dangerous to the established order. Sarah Chen had died trying to prevent a war. Her death was about to start one that would reshape the galaxy. The news of Ambassador Chen's assassination reached Earth 18 hours after the U.S. Defiance limped home through heavily monitored Valerian space. In the emergency session of the United Earth Council, President Morrison stood before the holographic displays, showing the red zones that now surrounded humanity's home system like the bars of a prison. "They killed her in cold blood," Admiral Hayes reported, his weathered face grim on the communication screen from Luna Command. General Vextar didn't even pretend it was an accident, called it maintaining order, said the Consortium has protocols for dealing with species that don't accept their place. Director Zhang of Earth Intelligence leaned forward. "What about Chen's final report? What exactly did she discover?" "Mining operations in 17 systems we thought were empty. Automated extraction platforms that have been operational for decades, maybe centuries. The Valerians weren't just claiming territory. They'd been systematically harvesting resources from every system within 50 light years of Earth." President Morrison felt the weight of 6 billion people on his shoulders. "So we're surrounded, cut off from expansion, and they think we'll just accept this." "That's exactly what they think," Hayes replied. Vextar was quite clear. Submit to their guidance for a few centuries, maybe earn junior membership in their little club. The alternative is what happened to the Antari and the Keth Moor. Secretary of Defense Williams activated her own display. "We've run the numbers. If they got mining operations in 17 systems, defensive platforms in each one, and the backing of Consortium protocols, a direct confrontation would be suicide. Our entire fleet consists of 12 heavy cruisers and maybe 60 support vessels. The Valerians could crush us without breaking a sweat." The room fell silent. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the council chambers, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children had just learned they were trapped. Then Director Zhang spoke quietly. "There's something else." Something Chen discovered that she transmitted separately, outside normal diplomatic channels. Every eye in the room turned to him. The quantum encryption on her personal device contained more than just intelligence on Valerian mining operations. She found something in their computer systems during the negotiations. A document. What kind of document? Morrison asked. Zhang activated a holographic display. Text appeared in multiple languages, standard Galactic, Valerian script, and what appeared to be dozens of other alien writing systems. A Consortium threat assessment report, specifically an assessment of humanity. Admiral Hayes leaned closer to his screen. What does it say? Zhang's voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly as he manipulated the display. According to this report, humanity is classified as a Class 5 expansion risk. What does that mean? Williams demanded. It means, Zhang said slowly, that out of all the species the Consortium has encountered in the last 5,000 years, only 3 have ever been classified above Class 3. The Antari were Class 4. They were managed down to 12 systems before being broken. The Kethmore were also Class 4. They were enslaved. The implications hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. And Class 5? Morrison asked, though he already dreaded the answer. According to the report, there has never been a Class 5 species. The assessment criteria include technological adaptability, resource utilization efficiency, territorial expansion rate, and... Zhang paused, highlighting a section of alien text, what they translate as conflict resolution innovation. Hayes frowned. Conflict resolution? We've had exactly one interstellar conflict, and we lost it before it started. That's just it, Zhang said, pulling up another section. They're not measuring how we fight wars. They're measuring how we solve problems under pressure. The report cites our response to climate change, our unified global government formation, our development of faster-than-light travel, in less than a century after achieving nuclear power. They're particularly concerned with what they call our adaptive warfare doctrine. We don't have an adaptive warfare doctrine, Williams protested. Don't we? Morrison asked quietly. Remember the simulation wars? The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. The simulation wars weren't actually wars. They were massive global strategy games that Earth's military academies have been running for decades. Millions of participants, modeling everything from resource conflicts to interstellar warfare scenarios. The games had produced some of humanity's most brilliant military minds. But they had also produced something else. Oh, God, Williams breathed. They know about the scenarios. Director Zhang nodded grimly. Not just know about them. They have detailed analysis. According to this report, human strategic thinking differs from every other known species in one crucial way. When faced with impossible odds, most species either surrender or fight using conventional approaches and lose. Humans change the rules, Morrison finished. The holographic display shifted, showing tactical analyses that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Scenarios where vastly outnumbered human forces achieved victory through what Consortium called unpredictable strategic mutations. Battles won not through superior firepower, but through approaches that enemy forces literally couldn't anticipate because they fell outside established military doctrine. Hayes' voice was barely above a whisper. They're not afraid of our ships or our weapons. No, Zhang confirmed. They're afraid of how we think, and that's why they killed Ambassador Chen. She wasn't just gathering intelligence on their mining operations. She was being tested. They wanted to see how we'd respond to the murder of a diplomat during peace negotiations. President Morrison stood up, pacing to the windows overlooking the sprawling cityscape of New Geneva. So, what do they expect us to do? Exactly what every other species has done, Zhang replied. File a formal complaint with the Consortium. Request mediation. Accept a reduced settlement that leaves us effectively imprisoned in our home system, while they slowly, legally, strangle our expansion potential over the next few centuries. Morrison turned back to face the room. And if we do something unexpected, then we validate their threat assessment, Williams said. We prove that humans really are dangerous to the established galactic order. The president looked at each face around the table, military leaders who had spent their careers planning for conflicts that might never come, intelligence officers who had made careers out of seeing 3 moves ahead, scientists who had unlocked the secrets of faster-than-light travel through sheer stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Director Zhang, Morrison said finally, does that report mention what happens to Class 5 species? Zhang's face was pale. Yes, sir. Immediate suppression protocols. Complete technological embargo. If necessary, he paused. If necessary, targeted extinction. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Morrison nodded slowly. then they've made their position clear. Submit or die. The question is, what do we do with that information? Outside the windows, Earth cities glowed with the light of 6 billion people who had no idea their species had just been classified as a threat to galactic civilization. The president's next words would determine whether humanity would spend the next few centuries as a junior member of an alien empire, or whether Ambassador Sarah Chen's death would become the first casualty in a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. President Morrison's voice echoed through the emergency session chamber as he addressed not just the Earth Council, but the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the directors of every major space program, and the leaders of the simulation war academies. The people of Valerians feared most without fully understanding why. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 48 hours before the consortium expects our formal response to Ambassador Chen's murder. They're expecting us to file a diplomatic protest, request mediation, and accept whatever table scraps they offer us in return for staying quiet about illegal mining operations in our neighboring systems. Admiral Hayes gestured to the tactical display. Mr. President, I need to emphasize that we're talking about facing not just a Valerian empire, but potentially the entire Galactic Consortium. That's over 200 star systems, technologies we don't understand, and resources we can't match. Which is exactly why we're not going to fight them conventionally, Morrison replied. General Patterson, what's the current status of Project Looking Glass? General Patterson, commander of Earth's most classified military research division, stood up slowly. Sir, are you sure you want to discuss that in open session? The Valerians already know we're a Class 5 threat. They're just not sure what that means yet. It's time we figured out ourselves. Patterson activated a new holographic display that made several people in the room shift uncomfortably. Project Looking Glass has been operational for 6 months. We've mapped every consortium member world, trade route, and military installation within 300 light years, using quantum surveillance drones smaller than a grain of sand. The display showed the local galaxy in stunning detail, not just star charts, but real-time intelligence on ship movements, communication networks, and resource flows. How is that possible? Director Zhang asked. The distances alone. Quantum entanglement communication, Patterson explained. We solved instantaneous data transmission 8 months ago. Every surveillance drone is quantumly linked to receivers on Earth. We're not just seeing what's happening in consortium space. We're seeing it as it happens. President Morrison nodded. What do we learn? That the Galactic Consortium is not as unified as they pretend to be, Patterson said, manipulating the display to highlight different colored regions. The Valerians control the local sector through a combination of economic pressure and military intimidation, but they're having resource problems. Those mining operations in our neighboring systems, they're not expansions. They're desperate attempts to maintain their current military strength. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. Explain. The Valerian Empire peaked about 50 years ago. Their population is declining due to environmental damage from centuries of strip mining their home system. They've been using automated extraction to maintain their resource base, but they're essentially eating their own territory from the inside out. Defense Secretary Williams studied the data flowing across her screen, so they need those mining operations to survive. More than that, according to our analysis, without the resources from those 17 systems, the Valerian military will begin experiencing critical shortages within 2 years. Their entire strategy depends on us accepting their dominance without resistance. Morrison walked to the center of the room. Dr. Reeves, what's the status of Prometheus Initiative? Dr. Sarah Reeves, director of Earth's experimental physics program, looked uncomfortable. Mr. President, Prometheus was designed as a purely theoretical research project. Not anymore. What would you need to make operational? Reeves activated her own display, showing designs that look more like art than engineering. The theoretical framework is solid. We can create controlled gravitational distortions on a massive scale. Essentially, we can move planets. The room fell silent. Move planets. Hayes repeated. As in change their orbits? As in relocate them anywhere within a solar system or potentially beyond. Reeves confirmed. The energy requirements are enormous, but if we convert our entire orbital manufacturing capacity. Morrison held up a hand. How long? 6 months to build the necessary infrastructure. Another 2 months for the actual relocation process. President Morrison turned to address the room. Here's what the Valerians don't understand about humans. They think we're just another species that will fight using conventional military tactics, lose, and submit. They've studied our simulation games and our strategic thinking, but they missed the most important lesson. He activated a new display showing historical human conflicts. When humans face impossible odds, we don't just fight harder. We change the battlefield entirely. The American Revolution succeeded because colonists refused to fight like Europeans. The Pacific Theater in World War II was won because we developed tactics nobody had ever seen before. Every major human conflict has been decided not by who had better weapons, but by who could adapt fastest to entirely new forms of warfare. Director Zhang was beginning to understand. You're not planning to fight the Valerians. No, Morrison confirmed. We're planning to make fighting us irrelevant. General Patterson pulled up another display. Operation Exodus has been in development since we first detected the alien mining platforms. If the Valerians want those 17 systems so badly, we're going to give them exactly what they're looking for. The display showed Earth's solar system, but with significant modifications. We're going to move Earth. The implications exploded through the room like a shockwave. Admiral Hayes was the first to speak. Move Earth where? Initially, to the far side of the solar system, beyond Pluto's orbit. Dr. Reeves explained, but that's just the first stage. Once we've demonstrated the capability, we can relocate our entire civilization to any uninhabited system within 50 light years. The Valerians think they've trapped us by surrounding our expansion routes, Morrison continued. They're thinking in terms of traditional interstellar colonization, ships, supply lines, established territory. They can't conceive of a species that would simply pick up their home planet and move it somewhere else. Defense Secretary Williams was staring at the projections with a mixture of horror and fascination. What about the billions of people who live here? That's the beautiful part, Dr. Reeves said. The gravitation manipulation is so precise that surface conditions will remain essentially unchanged. From a perspective of someone living on Earth, the only difference would be a new view of the stars. Morrison activated a final display showing the broader strategic picture. Phase 1. We move Earth out of Valerian reach, demonstrating capabilities they never imagined. Phase 2. We relocate to an uninhabited system and begin rapid expansion using our new gravitational technology. Phase 3. We return and negotiate with the Consortium as equals, not subjects. And if they try to stop us? Hayes asked. Patterson smiled grimly. Let them try. Sometimes we throw the whole box away. How do you fight an enemy who can move planets? How do you occupy territory that might not be there tomorrow? How do you enforce trade embargoes against a civilization that can relocate their entire industrial base faster than your ships can travel? The room was beginning to understand the scope of what was being proposed. This wasn't just retaliation for Ambassador Chen's murder. It was a complete reinvention of interstellar warfare. Morrison's voice carried the weight of history. The Valerians killed our diplomat because they thought we were just another primitive species that would accept subjugation rather than risk extinction. They're about to learn that humans don't just think outside the box. He gestured to the display, showing Earth beginning its journey away from the sun. The U.S. Defiance drifted silently in Earth's shadow, its hull scarred from the hasty return through Valerian-monitored space. Captain Martinez stood on the bridge, watching construction drones swarm around massive gravitational manipulation arrays being installed at the Earth-Moon L4 and L5 Lagrange points. Captain, his communications officer reported, were receiving multiple incoming transmissions from Consortium space. The Valerians are agitated. Martinez allowed himself a thin smile. On screen, General Vextar's image flickered to life, his 4 eyes burning with what looked like panic beneath their usual arrogance. Human vessel, you will respond immediately. Our sensors are detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout your system. Explain these readings at once. I'm sorry, General, Martinez replied calmly. Could you be more specific? We've been conducting routine maintenance on our orbital platforms. Routine maintenance does not generate gravitational distortions visible from 15 light-years away. Vex Star's gill slits were vibrating with agitation. Our physics teams are reporting readings that should be theoretically impossible. What are you doing to your planet? Behind Martinez, the tactical display showed the progress of Operation Exodus. The gravitational manipulation arrays were now operational, creating a control field that would gradually shift Earth's orbit without disturbing its rotation or surface conditions. Phase 1 of humanity's unprecedented response to Ambassador Chen's murder was ahead of schedule. "We're conducting scientific experiments," Martinez said. "Surely the consortium supports peaceful scientific research." On the display, Vextar was clearly struggling to maintain his composure. "Human Captain, the Consortium Council is convening an emergency session. These gravitational disturbances are affecting stellar cartography across 12 sectors. You will cease these experiments immediately and submit to Consortium inspection teams." "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Martinez replied. "Earth's sovereignty extends to our entire solar system. We don't recognize Consortium authority over our internal affairs." The truth was both simpler and more terrifying than anything Vextar could imagine. Over the past 36 hours, humanity had begun moving their home planet, not just changing its orbit, but preparing to relocate Earth itself to a completely different star system. Dr. Reeves' voice came through Martinez's earpiece from the surface. "Captain, we're ready for Phase 1 displacement. Earth's orbital velocity will begin shifting in 3 minutes. Vextar was still ranting on the main screen. "You cannot simply ignore consortium protocols. No species has ever—" "General," Martinez interrupted, "has any species ever moved their home planet before?" The question hung in space like a weapon. Vextar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the implications. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the total output of most star systems. The technology doesn't exist. Didn't exist, Martinez corrected, past tense. On Earth's surface, the gravitational manipulation arrays reached full power. The effect was so subtle that most of the planet's population didn't even notice. Just a slight shift in the field of gravity, easily dismissed as imagination. But the results were visible from space as Earth began to spiral outward from its traditional orbit. Vextar's image flickered as his communication system struggled to compensate for the changing gravitational environment. "This is madness. You're risking your entire species for what? Revenge for one dead diplomat." "Not revenge," Martinez said quietly. "Evolution." The communication cut off as Earth's changing position interrupted the quantum transmission. Martinez turned to his communications officer. "Any word from the other consortium members?" "Multiple incoming transmissions, sir. The Zephyrian hegemony is demanding explanations. The Crystalline Collective wants to send observation ships. And—" The officer paused, reading from her screen. "The Antari remnant is requesting asylum." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "The Antari? The species that was managed down to 12 systems?" "Yes, sir. Their message is simple. If the humans can move planets, can they move our worlds away from consortium control?" The implications were staggering. Humanity's response to Ambassador Chen's murder wasn't just about escaping Valerian dominance. It was potentially the beginning of the largest refugee crisis in galactic history. "Captain," Dr. Reeves reported from the surface, "Phase 1 displacement is complete. Earth is now in a stable orbit 15% further from the Sun. Surface conditions remain normal, but we're officially outside the traditional habitable zone. How long until we can begin Phase 2? Interstellar displacement will require another 48 hours of preparation. The energy requirements increase exponentially when we're talking about moving between star systems." Martinez nodded, then addressed his communications officer. "Open a channel to consortium space. All frequencies." The bridge fell silent as Martinez prepared to deliver the message that would change interstellar politics forever. "To all consortium members, this is Captain Martinez of the United Earth Starfleet. 72 hours ago, General Vextar of the Valerian Empire murdered Ambassador Sarah Chen during diplomatic negotiations. We were told to accept our place in the galactic hierarchy or face extinction. He paused, watching her continue its slow migration away from the sun. We choose neither. In 18 hours, Earth will begin transition to the Kepler 442 system, approximately 1,200 light-years from our current location. Any species currently under consortium oppression is welcome to join us in establishing a new model of interstellar civilization, one based on cooperation rather than domination. The communication array broadcasted the message across 300 light-years of space, reaching every consortium member world simultaneously. Martinez continued, "To the Valerian Empire specifically, you claimed the systems around Earth because you needed their resources. You can have them, but you'll be extracting those resources alone because the humans you tried to imprison have decided to leave." On the tactical display, new signals began appearing. Ships launching from Antari worlds, Kethmore labor colonies, and dozens of other suppressed civilizations. The galaxy's downtrodden species were preparing to follow humanity's impossible example. "This is our response to the murder of Ambassador Chen," Martinez concluded. "Not war, not submission. Liberation. For ourselves and anyone else ready to reject the consortium's vision of galactic order." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Martinez looked out at Earth, now noticeably further from the sun, its blue marble appearance unchanged despite the impossible journey it had begun. "Captain," his tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout consortium space. It looks like they're mobilizing everything they have." Martinez nodded grimly. The consortium's response was predictable. When faced with a threat they couldn't understand, they would try to destroy it using overwhelming force. But how do you fight an enemy who can move their entire civilization faster than your fleets can travel? The galaxy was about to find out. The emergency session of the Galactic Consortium Council convened in the ancient chambers on Nexus Prime, where representatives from 200 star systems gathered in holographic form. The massive crystalline amphitheater hummed with translations in over 300 languages as species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia faced their first existential crisis in recorded history. Supreme Chancellor Morrison of the Zephyrian Hegemony called the session to order, his translucent form shimmering with barely contained agitation. "Fellow beings, we face an unprecedented situation. The human species has demonstrated the ability to relocate planetary bodies at will. They have rejected consortium authority and are actively encouraging member civilizations to abandon their home worlds." General Vextar's image flickered in the Valerian section, his gill slits vibrating with unconcealed panic. "Honored Chancellor, the humans are not just threatening our established order, they're making it irrelevant. How do we maintain territorial boundaries when entire planets can disappear overnight?" The representative from the Crystalline Collective, a being of living mineral that communicated through harmonic resonance, chimed in. "Our deep space sensors confirm the impossible. The human homeworld has moved 17 billion kilometers from its original position and shows no signs of orbital decay or environmental damage. The gravitational manipulation technology they've developed exceeds our theoretical models by several orders of magnitude." In the observation galleries, representatives from dozens of smaller civilizations watched with undisguised hope. The Antari delegate, speaking for first time in over a century, stood to address the assembly. "Honored members, the Antari Collective formally requests permission to relocate our remaining 12 worlds to join the human exodus. We have endured 300 years of managed development under consortium protocols. If the humans offer an alternative, absolutely not." Vextar's outburst echoed through the chamber. "The humans are criminals. They violated every principle of galactic order. We cannot allow this rebellion to spread." But it was already spreading. The holographic displays showed real-time intelligence from across consortium space. Kethmore colonies launching transport ships loaded with their population's genetic material. Antari worlds beginning construction of what appeared to be gravitational manipulation devices based on human designs. Even member species that had never shown signs of dissatisfaction were quietly preparing contingency plans. Supreme Chancellor Morrison restored order. "General Vextar, explain your strategy for containing this crisis." Vexstar's image solidified as he accessed military deployment data. The combined consortium fleet is moving to intercept the human homeworld before it reaches interstellar space. We have 2,000 ships converging on their projected route. Whatever technology they're using, it cannot possibly defend against coordinated assault from our entire military force. And if they simply move their plan again, asked the crystalline representative, then we track them and attack again and again until their resources are exhausted or their population surrenders. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated the implications. For 5,000 years, the consortium had maintained order through a careful balance of diplomacy and overwhelming force. But how do you apply force against a civilization that refuses to stay in one place? The answer came from an unexpected source. If I may, came a new voice, translated from standard human English. Captain Martinez appeared in the chamber's communication array, broadcasting from the bridge of the U.S. Defiance. Captain Martinez, Chancellor Mordan acknowledged coldly, "You are not a recognized member of this assembly." "No, but I represent a species you classified as a Class 5 threat. I thought you might want to understand what that actually means." Vexstar's mandibles clicked aggressively. "Human, you are in violation of 17 consortium statutes. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Martinez smiled, expression that translated poorly to most alien species, but somehow conveyed both amusement and predatory intent. "General, your fleet of 2,000 ships is currently positioned to intercept Earth at coordinates that we vacated 6 hours ago." The tactical display is updated in real time, showing the massive consortium fleet surrounding empty space, while Earth's blue glow appeared near the edge of the solar system, already preparing for interstellar jump. "How?" whispered the crystalline representative. "Because you're still thinking in terms of traditional warfare," Martinez explained. "Territory to defend, supply lines to protect, strategic positions to hold. But what if your entire civilization is mobile?" The holographic display shifted, showing not just Earth, but the entire solar system reconfiguring itself. Mars was moving into a new orbit. The asteroid belt was consolidating into mining platforms. Even the outer gas giants were slowly shifting position. "We're not just relocating our homeworld," Martinez continued. "We're taking our entire solar system. Every resource, every manufacturing facility, every defensive platform. In 72 hours, this entire star system will be empty except for our sun and your mining platforms." The implications crashed through the chamber like a tsunami. A mobile civilization was not just immune to conventional military pressure. It rendered the entire concept of interstellar empire obsolete. Chancellor Mordan's voice carried the weight of millennia. "What do you want, human?" "Justice for Ambassador Chen," Martinez replied simply, "and freedom for any species tired of being managed by their betters." Vexstar's image was fracturing as his communication systems struggled with increasing distance. "You cannot simply steal entire civilizations. We're not stealing anything. We're offering alternatives." Martinez gestured, and the display showed dozens of transport ships launching from consortium worlds. "The Antari have voted to abandon their home worlds and join our mobile civilization. So have the Kethmore remnants. So have 17 other species that you classified as junior members or managed territories." The chamber erupted in cacophony as representatives realized the scope of what was happening. This wasn't just one species rebelling against consortium authority. It was the beginning of the largest migration in galactic history. In honor of Ambassador Sarah Chen, Martinez announced, "We're establishing the Free Systems Alliance. Any civilization that wants to govern itself without consortium oversight is welcome to join us. We have the technology to relocate entire worlds. We have the industrial capacity to build new homes among the stars. And we have something the consortium has forgotten, which is," Chancellor Mordan asked, "the knowledge that the galaxy is a very big place, big enough for multiple models of civilization to coexist." The transmission began to fade as Earth approached the edge of interstellar space. "This is Captain Martinez, representing the Free Systems Alliance, ending diplomatic contact with the Galactic Consortium. When you're ready to discuss terms as equals rather than subjects, You know how to find us." The transmission cut off, leaving the ancient chamber in stunned silence. Supreme Chancellor Mordan stared at the empty space where Martinez's image had been. Around him, representatives from 200 civilizations contemplated a galaxy that had fundamentally changed in the span of a single week. General Vextar's image flickered one final time before disappearing entirely as Earth completed its transition to faster-than-light travel, taking with it the first mobile interstellar civilization in recorded history. In the observation galleries, the remaining representatives of the Antari, Kethmor, and 17 other species quietly filed out of the chamber. By morning, their worlds would be empty, their populations beginning the journey to join humanity among distant stars. The Consortium had killed one human diplomat to maintain galactic order. In response, humanity had obsoleted the very concept of galactic order itself. Chancellor Mordan looked out at the holographic star maps that no longer showed the boundaries they had represented for millennia. Territory meant nothing when entire civilizations could pack up and leave. Military might was irrelevant when there was nothing to conquer. For 5,000 years, the Galactic Consortium had ruled through fear, intimidation, and the careful management of younger species. Now, for the first time in their long history, they were alone with their fear and the terrifying knowledge that the galaxy was vast enough to hide civilizations that refused to be managed. Ambassador Sarah Chen had died trying to prevent a war. Instead, her death had started something far more dangerous to the established order. It had started an idea. The idea that in a galaxy of infinite possibilities, no one had to accept someone else's vision of how civilization should work. And ideas, unlike world or fleets or ancient chambers of power, could travel at the speed of thought across any distance, and could never truly be destroyed. The stars, as humanity had just proven, belonged to anyone brave enough to reach for them.